Afternoon. This is Kay Davis talking to you from Washington, D.C., and welcome to the first webinar of Shaping the Way We Teach English webinar, Series 7. We see many familiar and many new names, so welcome to our new participants and welcome back to those who have participated before. The ways to participate in the webinars are to ask questions and make comments related to today's topic in the chat box. You can also use the raise hand feature and answer polls as they come up. Please remember to join our Ning site. This is where you will find readings related to each topic and the materials and recordings from each previous webinar. You can also participate in discussions with the presenter and your colleagues from around the world. The website is www.shapingenglish.ning.com. If you participate in at least 3 out of 5 webinars, you will receive an e-certificate. These certificates are sent via email from your U.S. Embassy or RELO once the webinar course is over. In order to ensure you are eligible for a certificate, please submit your email address at the end of each webinar when we request it. If you are hosting a viewing session, please remember to include the number of participants in your viewing session next to your email. As you are getting ready for the webinar to begin, let's run through some information about our office. The Shaping the Way We Teach English webinar course is brought to you by the Office of English Language Programs from the U.S. State Department. We offer many English language teaching programs, teacher training and development programs, and materials and resources for English teachers and learners around the world. One program you may be interested in participating in is the eTeacher Scholarship Program. These are 10-week graduate-level courses designed for English teachers worldwide. If you are interested in participating in one of the courses you see here, please contact your RELO or U.S. Embassy. We also offer a variety of books and other resources in print and online. Our flagship publication is English Teaching Forum. And this year, Forum is extra special, marking its 50th anniversary. Raise your hand if you have read English Teaching Forum. Forum is a printed journal that can be found in over 130 countries. You can also find Forum online with issues dating back to 1993. If you visit our website, englishprogram.state.gov, you can find many more of our publications that are available for download. Here are some of the free and downloadable publications, including a guide to American idioms, audio and text files to many classic American novels, and puzzles, a holiday resource, and much more. We have another website for English language teachers and learners, americanenglish.state.gov. Here you can access lesson plans and other resources for English teaching. Coming very soon is our video game entitled Trace Effects, which will be found on americanenglish.state.gov once it is released. Please visit our websites to find out more about our programs and to access our materials. Today's topic is Teaching with Jazz Chants, and the presenter is Shirley Thompson. Shirley Thompson has a master's degree in linguistics from the University of Michigan. She taught for many years at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and has also taught at the University of Maryland, American University in Washington, D.C., and Montgomery College in Maryland. She taught middle and high school English in Benin and Togo as a Peace Corps volunteer and at the university level in Senegal, where she was a Fulbright senior lecturer. She directs an ESL program at All Souls Church in Washington, D.C., and does teacher training workshops focusing on spoken English and pronunciation. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Shirley, for presenting.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to see so many of you from all over the world. I look forward to spending some time with you this afternoon talking about jazz chants. Jazz chants, how to use them to help your students speak more clearly, practice vocabulary, and learn and reinforce grammar patterns. That's our topic for today. Now let's look at what the goals are. The goals for this webinar: to introduce you, or perhaps reintroduce you, to Carolyn Graham's jazz chants, to show you how I introduce them and practice them in my classes and how I teach my teachers to use them. We'll also explore a variety of ways that you can use jazz chants. You can help your students speak with natural rhythm and intonation patterns of American English. You can use them to practice vocabulary. And you can use them to introduce and reinforce grammar patterns and grammar points. So the other thing I'd like to say before we really get started is that the best way to learn how to use jazz chants is to practice along with me. And when I play a video of Carolyn Graham or when I play a recording, I invite you to say everything out loud, clap, snap your fingers, tap the table, participate. That's the very best way to learn how to use jazz chants and to begin to feel comfortable using them. So again, welcome, and let's get started. What are jazz chants? Jazz chants are Carolyn Graham's snappy, upbeat chants and poems that use jazz rhythms to illustrate the natural stress and intonation patterns of conversational English. So who is Carolyn Graham? Let's listen to Carolyn Graham tell us about who she is and how jazz chants were born.
To watch other teachers first learning and then teaching. I got my chance simply by listening. You're not creating anything, you're just listening to the language all around you. I was teaching at New York University, teaching English as a second language in the daytime. But at night I was a ragtime piano player singer, and I played and sang very old American jazz. Lots of ragtime, lots of that old-time American music. Now that music has a very strong 1, 2, 3, 4 beat. And I'm playing that music, and one night somebody came into the bar and they said, "Gee, it's good to see you. You look wonderful." I heard 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I went to my boss, Professor Rudy Bernard. I said, "I have an idea. I'm calling it Jazz Chants. I need a big room, and we'll invite any student who wants to come, no charge, after class, practice your English with jazz." I had over 100 students in the room. We're playing jazz and we're chanting. We were on the 6 o'clock news, and jazz chants were born. In New York City, on Friday afternoon, almost everybody is saying the same thing. About 5 o'clock, this is what they're saying: "Have a nice weekend." And the second person is saying, "Thanks, you too." You see, so I was bringing this into my students. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Have a nice weekend." "Thanks, you too." "Have a nice weekend." "Thanks, you too." And it was a little...
I hope you enjoyed meeting Carolyn Graham and getting a sense of how she does it. And I'll be talking to you about some of the different ways that I do it that may or may not be the same as what she does. So, Carolyn Graham says a jazz chant is really just spoken American English with an awareness of natural rhythms. Chants use natural spoken English. Chants can be used in classes of any size. Raise your hand if you teach classes that are more than, say, 25 students. Anybody out there have really big classes? I see a few of you do. Great. This is a wonderful activity. I wish I'd known about it when I was overseas teaching really big classes. Another great thing about the chants is that they don't require any special materials. You can do it even without a blackboard, although having a blackboard is nice. Having a flip chart to write things on is nice too. Jazz chants can be used with all age groups. If you watch Carolyn Graham's video, you can see her working with very young children. And I can testify from my experience, I have used them mainly with university students, with graduate teaching assistants, and with adult immigrants. And they work wonderfully well with all languages. I'm sorry, all age groups and languages. I'm trying to read the chat at the same time that I'm talking, and I'm not real good at multitasking. Okay, chants are also great because even though Carolyn Graham is obviously a musician and a singer, she's the one who designed them, you can do jazz chants even if you don't have musical ability. And in fact, I think I'm a perfect example of that because I don't play a musical instrument and I really can't sing. But I use jazz chants all the time with my classes. You just have to be able to figure out the beat and clap along with it. So I encourage all of you to do it along with me today and see how it goes. Let's begin with the simplest of chants. Listen first and then we'll practice. Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Can you hear that 4 beats? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Okay. Say it along with me once. Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Okay, let's go on. Some advice from Carolyn Graham. A jazz chant has a 4-beat rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each beat will be either a stressed word or a clap. Or you can tap the table, you can snap your fingers, or you can just pause. The first beat is the first stressed word, which may not be the first word. For example, here we have the 4 beats. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Do you like it? Yes, I do. And you can see that the first beat is not do, it's not you, it's like, because that's your first stressed word. And we'll talk a little bit more about how stress works. Why is this focus on stress, rhythm, and grouping so useful? For native English speakers, stress is key to meaning. It's what we listen for to know what's important and what to focus on. Jazz chants are a fun and practical way to help your students begin to notice and produce these natural rhythmical patterns. We have a poll question now. How many of you attended the pronunciation workshop that was given in May? It was called Speaking Clearly, Activities for Improving English Pronunciation. Okay, I see that about 25% of you attended it. That's wonderful. If you attended the pronunciation workshop, then some of this will be a great review for you. And if you didn't, I hope this will be clear. I'm going to do a quick overview. And I invite you to go back and listen to the recording of the pronunciation workshop, which you can do by going to the Ning. Okay, so the results are in about 80-20. Okay, let's talk a little bit about 2 different types of spoken languages, syllable-timed and stress-timed languages. Many languages in the world are syllable-timed. More languages are syllable-timed than stress-timed, I understand. Every syllable gets more or less the same stress or emphasis. For example, this word in Spanish, in French, and in other similar languages would be pronounced with 5 staccato beats. Educación, ta 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 ta, ta 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 ta, ta 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 ta, very staccato. And this word would be pronounced with 2 even staccato beats, papa, 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 same vowel sound in both. but not English. English is a stressed, timed language. The rhythm is based on stressed words and syllables, not all syllables. So a word like education has just one strong beat, da 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 da, rather than 4 or 5 even beats. It's got one strong beat and 3 very weak reduced beats. Papa, papa. You can hear that papa has one strong beat. And listen to the vowel sound, pa, 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 pa. The vowel sound is different if the syllable is stressed than if it's unstressed. And as many of you know, it becomes schwa in many cases, and we'll talk in a minute more about that. Okay. Let's demonstrate how this stress timing versus syllable timing works and show you what happens when we look at English, at an English sentence. So here we have the rhythm in sentences. How many syllables, how many stresses? You can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences. The first one has 3 syllables. The last one has 9 syllables, but all of them have 3 stresses and 3 beats. Okay? And so let's look at how this works by clapping it out together, okay? The beat is set by the number of stresses, not the number of syllables. So each line should take approximately the same amount of time to say. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kids play ball. The kids play ball. The kids are playing ball. The kids are playing with the ball. The kids have been playing with the ball. Join in with me and we'll do it one more time. Kids play ball. The kids play ball. The kids are playing ball. The kids are playing with the ball. The kids have been playing with the ball. Okay, so tell me, was this jazz chant challenging for you? Do you think it would be challenging for your students? If you said yes, this was challenging for you, or you think it might be challenging for your students, you probably come from a language where the rhythm comes from the syllables and not from the stresses. So that's something that you might want to listen to the pronunciation workshop to learn more about it, and you'll be getting a chance to practice it with more jazz chants today. Okay? There are many levels of stress in English. Words with 2 or more syllables will always have one primary stress. Some longer words have secondary stress, but don't even worry about that. If your students can notice primary stress, that's wonderful. Photograph, photographer, photographic. You can see that each word has one primary stress. Phrases have stress. An excellent photographer, an excellent photographer, an excellent photographer. So you have 2 stresses, excellent and photographer, and they follow the typical adjective-noun pattern. The adjective has stress, the noun has more stress. Excellent photographer, an excellent photographer. Sentences have stress. My grandmother was an excellent photographer. My grandmother was an excellent photographer. We use stress to focus attention and to show contrast, often to correct, contradict, or disagree. My father liked to paint, but my mother was a photographer. So here we're contrasting. She was a photographer, not a photojournalist. She was a photographer, not a photojournalist. So here we're contradicting or correcting someone. Stress in English impacts meaning, even at the word level. Other languages have stress, but often it doesn't change the meaning of a word. For example, at the word level, record is different from record. I like to tell this story of how I began to focus on stress. Years ago, I was teaching a speaking listening class. After class, a student approached me with his cassette tape in his hand. And you know this was years ago because we were still using cassette tapes. And he said to me, I need to talk to you about my cassette. He had the cassette tape in his hand, and he said, I need to talk to you about my cassette. I said, do I know your cousin? I misunderstood because the stress was incorrect, even though he used the correct word. So stress is very, very important to native English speakers. Stress affects meaning at the phrase and sentence level. So let's look at this conversation in a bakery. The customer walks in and says, I'd like 2 large muffins, please. And the server goes to the case, gets some things, puts them in a bag, and says, here you are. Can you guess what the problem is in each case? We're going to do a poll here. The customer says, excuse me, I asked for 2 large muffins. Excuse me, I asked for 2 large muffins. What's the problem? The server gave the customer 2 small muffins. The server gave the customer 2 large cookies. The server gave the customer only 1 muffin. What's the problem? The customer says, excuse me, I asked for 2 large muffins. Okay, here the speaker, the customer, is stressing the word 2. So that's what the customer wants the server to focus on. So obviously, the server didn't give him 2. He must have given him only 1. The server gave the customer only 1 muffin. Let's look at the second one. The customer says, excuse me, I asked for 2 large muffins. Excuse me, I asked for 2 large muffins. What's the problem? Ha! 100% correct. The server gave the customer 2 small muffins because my voice is directing you to listen to large. Okay, let's look at the third one. This one you should probably get really easily. The customer says, excuse me, I asked for 2 large muffins. I asked for 2 large muffins. 100%. The server gave the customer 2 large cookies. Great, good job. I think you're getting it. Okay, so before we move on to some more jazz chants, let's see if you have any questions about stress. As I said, regular focus on stress and rhythm will train your students to notice stress in English, even if they don't always get it right. At least they'll be learning to listen for it, okay? So does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, somebody's asking about whether you can consider singing as a jazz chant. I think I'm going to give you some, I'm going to play some more things for you where you'll hear Carolyn Graham, who does it in a much more singing kind of way. And in fact, she does have songs that she has written as well for English teaching. Okay, let's continue on. And if you still have a question about singing at the end, we'll try to save some time for that. But I think you'll see from some examples. Here are some general suggestions for using jazz chants. Begin orally. This will force your students to listen to what you actually say or what the video says, or if you're using a recording, and not what they think the word should sound like based on the way that things are spelled. Oftentimes when students see a word spelled, they get an idea in their brain of how that word should be pronounced. And that's why I really encourage teachers to do a lot of oral work first before students see things in writing. This goes for jazz chants and lots of other things. The second thing is to be dramatic, exaggerate, make it fun. Make it be a time that the students can relax, get into the beat, get into the rhythm, and just have fun. Research has proven that having fun can make language learning much easier. Finally, have students listen to the whole jazz chant first. Then have them listen and repeat each line several times together as a chorus. Research has also shown that it's important for language learners to hear their own voice saying something in order to really begin to focus on how the actual spoken language sounds. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I teach jazz chants, And then we'll be doing a number of them together, and I hope you'll be practicing right along with me. First of all, I introduce the chant orally first. I explain any idioms. I discuss the context. Where do you think this conversation might have taken place, etc. I begin with group or choral practice and then move to pair or individual practice. And in fact, I usually don't ask students to do it individually until we've practiced it a lot. Focus on stress, thought groups, and intonation, especially in the beginning. And we'll have lots of examples of that. For longer, more complex chants, after some oral practice, group and pairs, show them the written chant and go through it again several times. Together, mark it to show major stresses, intonation, reduced sounds, linking, and blending. Visual learners will appreciate this, and I will give you an example of how I do that. Review chants regularly. They make a great warm-up, or they make a great ending of the class. I often suggest to my teachers in the program at church that they choose 4 or 5 jazz chants that they're going to teach over the session and repeat them regularly so that students become very familiar and very confident with them, because it's a great way to build your students' confidence. Okay, so let's do one together. As I said, I'm going to introduce the chant orally first. I don't think I'm going to have to explain anything because it's a real easy one. And then I'll show you the written word and we'll do it together. The name of the chant is Do You Like It? Okay, so just listen first. I'm going to give you the beat. Do you like it? Yes, I do. I'm sorry, let me do it again. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Does he like it? Yes, he does. Does she like it? Yes, she does. Do they like it? No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. Okay? One more time. And you can see that I messed up. And it's very easy to mess up, so don't worry about it. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Does he like it? Yes, he does. Does she like it? Yes, she does. Do they like it? No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. So I think you probably understood it. Anybody have any questions before we go on? So here we have the chant. Somebody's asking, what about grammar? We'll be coming to grammar in a minute. So here, first of all, I want to do some chants with you just to show how they work, and then we'll talk about using them to explain and practice grammar. So if you see the chant here, what I've done is I've marked the beats for you, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's practice it together. I'm going to read each line twice, and I'd like to have you either clap, tap the table, or snap your fingers along with me, all right? Everybody ready? I'm going to read each line twice, and you can go along with me both times, or you can chime in the second time. Okay, I'll do the beat first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Does he like it? Yes, he does. Does he like it? Yes, he does. Does she like it? Yes, she does. Does she like it? Yes, she does. Do they like it? No, they don't. Do they like it? No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. Okay. Someone asks, can we tap instead of clap? Absolutely. And if you have a drum, you can use that or some other musical instrument to keep a beat. And we'll listen to some chants where they have drumming and other things keeping the beat in the background in just a few minutes. Okay. So again, I would go from whole to line by line, chorus, groups, and pairs. Now, I'm going to show you how you can mark up the text, and you can do it in whatever way you typically would do it with your students. This is the way that I do it. So for example, the first beat is on like, which means the first 2 words are not stressed. So do you becomes do you. Do you like it? Do you like it? Do you like it? And I've written that upside down E, which is the schwa, above the do, because we don't say do, we say duh. We don't say you, we say ya. Do you like it? Do you like it? And I've also crossed out the sounds that we're changing or that we're omitting. And I've put, if you see the little under like it, you see a little line showing that we link. Do you like it? Like it? Like it? This is an excellent tip if you are from a language like Thai, where words don't typically end in consonants and students tend to leave off the final consonant. Have them think of the consonant as linking to the beginning of the next word, and you'll find that it can really be helpful. Okay? Look at the next line. Does he like it? Does he like it? So I've crossed it off to show that does becomes does with a Z sound. Does he? Instead of does he, it becomes does he like it? Does he like it? And then if you look at the answer, yes, he does. 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 You could actually leave the H in or drop it, depending on how quickly you're saying it. Okay? So this is how I mark it up. I also showed here how you can do it in three parts, where one person asks the question, another person answers, and then you can do it all together at the end. Or you could start off with the teacher asking the questions and the student answering, then divide up into group A and B. Group A asks the question, group B answers, and then everybody says, no, they don't, no, they don't, together. So let's just do it one more time for fun. We'll go through the whole thing together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Does he like it? Yes, he does. Does she like it? Yes, she does. Do they like it? No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. And you can have them yelling at the end if you'd like. Okay, let's move along now. We're going to talk for a minute about how stress works in sentences. I'm hopeful that this will be helpful for you in deciding where the beat should be. So for those of you who are at the workshop, this will be a great review. Content words are usually stressed, and content words include nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs, demonstratives, this, that, these, those, and all negatives, can't, won't, never, no, etc. And you'll notice that I say usually because depending on the meaning, you can stress any word in a sentence. Any word. It could be a preposition. If I say, for example, the keys are on the table. Where? They're on the table. Under the table? No, on the table. So we could stress prepositions, right? So these are just typically this is what we stress. Function words are typically, usually not stressed, and they are reduced. And the. Pronouns, he, she, it. Auxiliary verbs, can, could, should, must, might, do, does. Most prepositions, etc., are unstressed. In unstressed words and in unstressed syllables, the vowel sounds are reduced and often move to that schwa sound. Do you like it? Do and ya are reduced, as we saw. Okay. Typically, the last content word in a thought group receives the most stress. What's a thought group? A thought group is simply a group of words that are logical and make sense together. And we'll be seeing some of those right now. So the whole sentence is, I put the groceries in the bag on the counter. The thought groups could be, I put the groceries in the bag on the counter. And can you hear that rhythm? I put the groceries in the bag on the counter. We have stress on each of the last content words in each of the thought groups. So if you look at the verb put, I put the groceries in the bag on the counter. Put has a stress, but it's not the focus stress that you get with the last content word. Okay, let's talk now about, we're going to do another jazz chant. This is one that you can hear on the videotape that the English Language Programming Office offers, that you saw a bit of it with Carolyn Graham earlier. This one, again, I've done so that you can see you could do it two groups. Group A asking the question, be answering the question and doing the last line together. So right now what I'm going to do is do it for you once through. You can see that this would be a great chant to use with beginning students at any age or any level to practice questions, to practice parts of the body, head, hands, feet, and to practice pieces of clothing. Okay? So let's listen first and then we'll do it together. What do you wear on your head? A hat. What do you wear on your hands? Gloves. What do you wear on your feet? Socks. Shoes and socks. Shoes and socks. And did you notice what happens with the and when I say shoes and socks, shoes and socks, shoes and socks, shoes and socks? You can see that the and becomes reduced to Okay? Let's do it together. I will read each line twice and join in with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you wear on your head? A hat. What do you wear on your head? A hat. What do you wear on your hands? Gloves. What do you wear on your hands? Gloves. What do you wear on your feet? Socks. What do you wear on your feet? Socks. Shoes and socks. Shoes and socks. Shoes and socks. Shoes and socks. And oftentimes it's fun to repeat the last line a number of times. Okay, the next one that we're going to do, I'm going to ask you to do something, and let's not do this as a poll question. I'm just going to ask you, and I'll trust you to decide what the correct answer is, okay? Look at the first sentence. You've got 7 words. Do you think it's going to rain? Type in what words you think should be stressed. What words in the first line do you think should be stressed? I see think, rain, going, think, rain. Great. Okay. Those of you who said think and rain are absolutely correct. Do you think it's going to rain? Going is not stressed because going to is an auxiliary verb here. It's part of the future, going to rain. So the 2 stresses are going to be think and rain. How about the next one? I hope not. I hope not. Which of those 3 words do you think should be stressed? Somebody wrote awesome. Okay. Hope, because it's a main verb, and not. And in this case, we're not stressing I. We're not stressing I, so it's just going to be hope and not. So listen to me do the first 2 lines with the stresses. Do you think it's going to rain? Do you think it's going to rain? 2 stresses. Think, rain. Think, rain. Do you think it's going to rain? This is another great way to teach it. With students who really have a hard time not stressing every word, say it with just the stressed words first and then add in the other words. Think, rain. Think, rain. Think, rain. Do you think it's going to rain? Do you think it's going to rain? Think, rain. Think, rain. Do you think it's going to rain? Do you think it's going to rain? I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. Do you think it's going to rain? Do you think it's going to rain? Okay, so I'm going to do the whole thing for you, and so you can listen to how it sounds all together, and then you can repeat it after me. Do you think it's going to rain? I hope not. Do you think it's going to rain? I hope not. It looks like rain. It looks like rain. Do you think it's going to rain? I hope not. You'll notice that when we get to it looks like rain, there are actually 3 content words that could be stressed. Looks like rain. But what happens in English when we have 3 stresses in a row, we often reduce the middle stress. So it's still stressed, but it's very weak. It looks like rain. It looks like rain. It looks like rain. It looks like rain. Can you hear that? There are 3 stresses, but we only have the beat on the first stress and the third stress. Okay. And there's a second verse. Do you think it's going to snow? I hope so. Do you think it's going to snow? I hope so. It looks like snow. It looks like snow. Do you think it's going to snow? I hope so. Okay, rather than doing this one together, let's go on to another one. Oh, before I go on, let me just say this is from Carolyn Graham's book called Small Talk. And small talk is just everyday little conversations that we have with each other in an elevator, on a street corner, at the post office. And if you're working with students who are going to be going to an English-speaking country, these are wonderful because she teaches the students how to say the simplest things with a perfectly natural rhythm. So Small Talk and Grammar Chants are probably my two favorite books by Carolyn Graham. Here's another one. If it was raining when she saw him. It was raining when she saw him. And this one, I would like to play the audio tape from Carolyn Graham's book for this one.
Number 5. It was raining when she saw him.
It was raining when she saw him.
It was raining when she saw him. It was raining when they met. It was pouring when they fell in love. The streets were dark and wet. It was raining when they parted. There were dark clouds in the sky. It was raining when he left her, when he turned and said goodbye.
Number 5. It was raining when she saw him.
It was raining when she saw him. It was raining when they met. It was pouring when they fell in love. The streets were dark and wet. It was raining when they parted. There were dark clouds in the sky. It was raining when he left her, when he turned and said goodbye.
So you may have recognized that that was in fact Carolyn Graham. And if you notice, this is really more like poetry, and you can actually use poetry in very much the same way that you use jazz chants. How many of you enjoyed the drums? Raise your hand if you enjoyed the drums. Okay. How many of you think you would like to actually try doing it with some sort of a musical instrument like a drum? Great. Okay, let's move on because I do have some other jazz chants that I'd like you to hear. And I wanted to point out that I bolded words for this one and put the stresses in a slightly different place from where Carolyn Graham put them. And I want to show you that you can have different beats for the same chant or the same poem. So here, for example, you can see how this could be marked in two different ways. So I'll read it through with both different patterns and see what you think. It was raining when she saw him. It was raining when they met. Okay, that's where we're using the stressed word in the thought group. It was, I'll read the blue part, the first one again. It was raining when she saw him. It was raining when they met. And the way that Carolyn Graham did it on the audio tape was the second one, the red pinkish one. It was raining when she saw him. It was raining when they met. It was raining when she saw him. It was raining when they met. So you can see that you can take the same jazz chant and you can come up with slightly different stress patterns, and they're both correct. And I would say use whichever one you feel most comfortable with. Do what works for you and for your students. Here's an easy jazz chant. It shows how jazz chants can provide students with useful chunks of language expressions that they learn as a whole rather than word by word. Carolyn Graham's chant, How Do You Spell Dog, gives students a template for asking how to spell a word. Try beating out the rhythm by marching. You can have students march in a circle as they chant. It gets the rhythm of English into their bodies. It's especially great for kinesthetic learners. And again, this is something that you might naturally think of doing with children, but it's something that I have done with graduate students. I have done it with teachers and teacher training. I've done it with adults, and it really helps them get the feeling of the rhythm of English, to have them stand up and stomp their feet as they're doing the chant. So if you'd like to, I invite you to, instead of clapping or tapping or snapping on this one, try moving your feet. How do you spell dog? D-O-G. How do you spell cat? C-A-T. How do you spell octopus? Don't ask me. Okay? So you can see that you could do it with your feet, moving your feet, walking around the room. Sometimes I just have the students all stand up and we march in place. But it's fun once they know the jazz chant to have them walking around the room. So let's do this one together, and I will tap the table, because I don't know if you can hear it when I stomp my feet. And we'll do each line 2 times so that you can repeat it after me. How do you spell dog? D-O-G. I'm sorry. 2 times I said, didn't I? How do you spell dog? How do you spell dog? D-O-G. D-O-G. How do you spell cat? How do you spell cat? C-A-T. C-A-T. How do you spell octopus? How do you spell octopus? Don't ask me. Don't ask me. And you can see how students would suddenly be able to say, teacher, how do you spell bookstore? Or whatever it is, the word that they want to know how to spell. They've got the template. They've got the chunk of language to do it. Okay, now for those of you who are anxious about how you can use this for grammar class, let's talk about using jazz chants in grammar class. Whenever possible, introduce grammar points orally. Jazz chants are a fun and memorable way to do this. Focus on the individual sounds that matter most in English, sounds that indicate grammatical features such as third-person singular, plural, or the different tense endings. For example, the s, z, t, d, and id sounds that are so important grammatically speaking. Here's a jazz chant called the Hungry Boy Chant. You can hear Carolyn Graham do this one also on the video. And here's a way that you can take a really simple chant like this and turn it into some grammar practice. So the chant goes, he wants 1 egg, 2 bananas, 3 hot dogs, 4 hamburgers, 5 cookies, 6 sandwiches. He's a hungry boy. Okay? So that's the jazz chant, and you can see how you could take this jazz chant. It already provides practice with the plural endings, bananas, hot dogs, hamburgers, cookies, sandwiches. You can also use it to teach students how to notice how the stress changes, or how native speakers use stress to express different meanings. Make true and false statements and have your students correct you or ask questions. Here are some examples. And you can do this with lots of jazz chants. This is just one example of turning it into a little grammar lesson as well. So you, the teacher, say, he ate 3 eggs. The student says, no, he ate 3 hot dogs. You say, he ate 3 bananas. The student says, no, he ate 2 bananas. Or no, he ate 3 hot dogs. You say, did he eat 3 sandwiches? The student says, no, he ate 6 sandwiches. So again, you can take this jazz chant and work with it to practice grammar. Now we're going to listen to another jazz chant called Irregular Verbs. This is from the book that Carolyn Graham has written called Grammar Chants, where she provides you with chants to practice all sorts of grammar points. And this is just an example of a very direct jazz chant using irregular verbs. And I'll have you listen to it and then well, no, actually, I think I'll put the screen on so you can see it as you listen.
Unit 8. Unit 8, Simple Past, Part 2.
Grammar chant. Irregular verbs. Say, said, stop on red. Eat, ate, don't be late. Break, broke, have a Coke. Take, took, learn to cook. Speak, spoke, tell a joke. Write, wrote.
Unit 8, Simple Past, Part 2.
Grammar chant. Irregular verbs. Say, said, stop on red. Eat, ate, don't be late. Break, broke, have a Coke. Take, took, learn to cook. Speak, spoke, tell a joke. Write, wrote, get off the boat.
So again, you have Carolyn Graham doing this live, doing this with music. So you can see how if you're musical, you certainly can use music. Somebody pointed out that in this one, she actually has it rhyming. Say, said, stop on red. This morning, somebody asked me, what does get off the boat mean? I don't think it's an idiom. I think she just found that that rhymed, and it's just saying get off the boat. Okay. So the Grammar Chants book has lots of grammar chants that are very direct instruction on grammar points, as well as more kind of narrative stories that practice different grammar points. The next chant that you're going to hear, that we're going to talk about, can be used to teach or reinforce grammar points. Chants can be used to use or teach or reinforce grammar points while at the same time providing speaking and pronunciation practice. And that's one of the reasons why I love them, because you can do both of them at the same time. Students can quite easily absorb complex grammar points through this type of quality repetition. And quality repetition is key for speaking English. So here's another one by Carolyn Graham, and for those of you who teach more advanced students, you can see that this is practicing more sophisticated grammar points. For example, you've got this if, using an if clause followed by the future tense, as opposed to a when clause followed by the simple present tense, or present simple, some people call it. So if we look at this, you can see that it's got the 4-beat, rains, wear, raincoat. Raincoat is another example of a compound that, even though it looks like it might be 2 words, and sometimes people write compounds as 2 words with a space in between, it's really just 1 word with 1 stress. And you'll also see as you go down the chant that in the second verse it says, if it snows, I won't wear sandals. Won't is a negative, wear is a main verb, and sandals is a noun. So typically, you'd think they should all be stressed. But when we have these 3 stressed words together, we typically alternate the stress. There's actually a linguistic term for it called iambic alternation or something like that. Anyway, let's listen to it. I'll read the whole poem together. You can see that it practices grammar, it practices vocabulary about the weather, and about clothing. Okay? So I'll do it for you, and then we can practice it once together if you'd like. If it rains, I'll wear my raincoat. If it doesn't rain, I won't. When it's cold, I always wear my gloves. When it isn't cold, I don't. If it snows, I won't wear sandals. If the sun comes out, I will. But if it rains, I'll wear my brand new coat. If I don't, I'll get a chill. Okay, so if you would like to, you can do it after me. I'll read, this time I think I'll do just the first verse, And you can read, I'll read each line twice and you can read it after me. You can say it along with me. If it rains, I'll wear my raincoat. If it rains, I'll wear my raincoat. If it doesn't rain, I won't. If it doesn't rain, I won't. When it's cold, I always wear my gloves. When it's cold, I always wear my gloves. When it isn't cold, I don't. When it isn't cold, I don't. Okay, do we have any questions at this point? If you do, put them in the chat box. Okay, I noticed somebody saying conditionals are a little bit difficult. I think that's one of the beauties of jazz chants is that if they learn that expression, if it rains, I'll wear my raincoat, they don't even have to remember the rule. They will remember the chant. If it rains, I'll wear my raincoat. If it doesn't rain, I won't. That's one of the things that's lovely about jazz chants and dialogues is that students learn a lot of grammar without necessarily learning grammar rules. And then when they get to the point where they need the rules, they already know some sentences and phrases that use the grammar that they need. Okay, someone says, could you teach first conditional with this? I haven't taught grammar for so long. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the first conditional. I know there are 3 conditionals. Which one is the first one? You can ask me that and then I'll. But actually, I mean, you can teach any grammar point using a jazz chant. Just think of a logical place in which you would use that grammar point and make up a chant. Okay, now let's move along. We'll be listening now to 2 more jazz chants that are from the Grammar Chants book by Carolyn Graham. The first one is practicing the simple present tense, and the second one is practicing the present progressive tense.
Number 3. Habits.
Number 3. Habits.
Bob gets up at 6 o'clock. He never wakes up late. He always gets up early. He never sleeps till 8. He always drinks his coffee black. He never uses cream. He rarely has a sleepless night. He never has a dream. He does his breakfast dishes, then puts them on the shelf. Walks around the kitchen, humming to himself.
Number 3. Habits.
Bob gets up at 6 o'clock. He never wakes up late. He always gets up early. He never sleeps till 8. He always drinks his coffee black. He never uses cream. He rarely has a sleepless night. He never has a dream. He does his breakfast dishes, then puts them on the shelf. Walks around the kitchen, humming to himself.
Okay, so you can see that in this chant, there's lots of grammar going on, of course. There's the use of the present simple for habits, adverbs of frequency, all kinds of stuff that you could draw upon in your grammar class. Someone asked if there's a CD. Yes, this is the CD. This is from the CD that comes with Carolyn Graham's book entitled Grammar Chants. And some of these things you can find on the internet. So you might want to try there if you can't get a copy of the book. Okay, let's look at the next jazz chant, which is called What's Going On This Morning? And you can see that this one is practicing the present progressive tense. Okay, so let's listen to that.
Morning. Number 1. What's going on this morning?
The earth earth is turning.
The toast is burning.
The water is boiling.
The tea kettle's whistling.
The faucet is leaking.
The floor is creaking.
The plants are dying.
The kids are crying.
What's burning?
The toast is burning.
What's boiling?
The water is boiling.
How are the plants?
The plants are dying.
How are the kids?
The kids are crying. Number 1. What's going on this morning?
The earth is turning.
The toast is burning.
The water is boiling.
The tea kettle's whistling.
The faucet is leaking.
The floor is creaking.
The plants are dying.
The kids are crying.
What's burning?
The toast is burning.
What's boiling?
The water is boiling.
How are the plants?
The plants are dying.
How are the kids?
The kids are crying.
So you've had a chance to hear what the different voices on the CD sound like, and you can see that people have different ways of doing it. Sometimes it's more like a rap, sometimes it's more like singing, and you'll find your own way, and your students will find their own ways of doing it. So let's talk a little bit more about some other things you can do in a grammar class. For this activity, give the students the written version of the chant before they hear it. See if they can apply the rules of stress. At the same time, they'll be reviewing parts of speech. So first of all, have your students identify all of the nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and other content words that will most likely be stressed when you're going to do a chant. They can underline the stressed words or they can circle them, whatever you prefer. Then have them identify the function words that will likely be reduced. Draw a line through those unstressed words. Let's try it and see how it works. So here we have, is the post office open tomorrow? One of my favorite chants. I'm not sure why, but I like this chant a lot. So if your students were going to look at that first line and you say to them, in the first line, what are the content words? What are the words which carry the meaning? So in your chat box, what do you think are the words that carry the meaning in that first line? Open, that's the verb. Post office open tomorrow. Raul, thank you. Post office open tomorrow. In the second line, it's open from 9 to 5. What would be the content words in the second line? It's open from 9 to 5. Open 9-5. Great. Now, if your students are having a hard time not having a staccato rhythm that emphasizes every word. For example, if your students want to go, is the post office open tomorrow? What you might try doing, and I think we did this once before, is just give them the stressed words. Post office open tomorrow. Post office open tomorrow. And then have them add in, is the post office open tomorrow? Open 9-5. Open 9-5. It's open from 9 to 5. Open 9-5. It's open from 9 to 5. So let me give you an example of how it might look after you have marked it up. So you might mark it in some way similar to this, crossing out the unstressed words. You might want to indicate where the intonation rises and where the intonation falls. You might want to indicate linking, blending, whatever you may be working on in terms of pronunciation at the same time that they're practicing grammar. So I'm going to go through this once. You can listen. Is the post office open tomorrow? It's open from 9 to 5. Is the post office open tomorrow? It's open from 9 to 5. What time does it open? It opens at 9. What time does it close? It closes at 5. It opens at 9 and closes at 5. It's open from 9 to 5. And then there's a second verse. Are the stores open tomorrow? They're open from 9 to 5, etc. And you can see how you could develop this into practice with singular and plural. You could do, is the library open tomorrow? It's open from 8 to 6. Is the drugstore open tomorrow? It's open from 9 to 9. Whatever you want, you can expand upon it depending on what you're working on in your class. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about writing your own chants. Some of you may want to do this, and also about using chants to focus on vocabulary. Remember what Carolyn Graham said. You want the language to be real, to be useful, and to be appropriate for the level of student that you are working with. So let's begin with vocabulary chants. Why vocabulary chants? Rhythm is a powerful tool for memory. First of all, have your students make a list of vocabulary words from a lesson that you've done. Ask them to arrange them according to the number of syllables per word. This is great practice in having them begin to notice syllables and which ones are stressed and which ones aren't. Choose a 2-syllable, a 3-syllable, and a 1-syllable word to make a chant. This is an example from Carolyn Graham that you can see on her videotape. So she chose, they were doing classroom objects, and she made a list of 10 classroom objects and chose a 2-syllable word, a 3-syllable, and a 1-syllable. So we've got ruler, eraser, and chair. And the chant goes, ruler, eraser, chair. Ruler, eraser, chair. Ruler, eraser, ruler, eraser, ruler, eraser, chair. Easy, right? Let's see how it might work with a different set of vocabulary. Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, let's look at how you can add adjectives in. Purple ruler, pink eraser, purple ruler, pink eraser, purple ruler, pink eraser, yellow chair, yellow chair. And you can watch her and practice with her on the video if you'd like. Okay. So here's an example. Let's say you've done a unit on different places in your town. First of all, have the students make a word list, maybe 10 words that they are practicing from the lesson. Have them divide them up into 1-syllable words, 2-syllable words, and 3-syllable words. And again, you've got a lot of these compounds: drugstore, bead store, bookstore. Some of them are written as 1 word, some of them are written as 2 words, but pronounced as 1 word. Bead store, train station, post office, hardware store. So choose a 2, a 3, and a 1. So here we chose drugstore, train station, zoo. So let's do this jazz chant together. Drugstore, train station, zoo. Drugstore, train station, zoo. Drugstore, train station, drugstore, train station, drugstore, train station, zoo. Okay? One more. Here's one that's kind of fun, using words that we might use to praise someone's work. I've chosen a 2-syllable word, perfect, a 3-syllable word, fabulous, and a 1-syllable word, great. So let's try the chant. See if you can do it along with me. Perfect, fabulous, great. Perfect, fabulous, great. Perfect, fabulous, perfect, fabulous, perfect, fabulous, great. Okay, let's do it together. One time all together. Perfect, fabulous, great. Perfect, fabulous, great. Perfect, fabulous, perfect, fabulous, perfect, fabulous, great. And I think you can see how this is the kind of activity that you can use at any level. If you're working with graduate students, you might have them take words from their particular field of study, say from physics, and have each student prepare their own jazz chant and perform it for the class. Or, for example, in a class where you've been studying a unit and you have 20 vocabulary words, you might write them on the board and have small groups of students each write a different jazz chant based on the vocabulary words that they choose and perform them for the class. Okay? Writing your own chants. Once you feel comfortable using chants, you might want to try writing your own. Start by listening to the rhythms that native speakers use. And you remember Carolyn Graham talking about how she listened to what people say at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in New York City? Have a nice weekend, thanks, you too. Have a nice weekend, thanks, you too. So what you want to do if you're going to write your own chants is to listen to some natural English. And one of the websites that we have on the Ning is for NPR, where you can listen to interviews with people that are very natural. Remember that the speech, the language that you're using should be real language, it should be useful, it should be appropriate for the age group, and Carolyn Graham says that over the years that she has found that the best jazz chants are the ones that are the simplest. So she suggests keeping it simple. Okay. It's best to listen to something very natural and unscripted as a model. Try National Public Radio, npr.org, and click on StoryCorps. In StoryCorps, you'll hear Americans telling stories about their lives using natural language. These are also interesting cultural information that you might want to use with your students for the cultural information. Recordings are great because you can listen to them again and again until you begin to really hear that rhythm of the English, of the natural spoken English. So let's recap. And then I think we'll have a few minutes left for questions at the end. So think about whether you have any questions. Let's recap the many uses of jazz chant. We've talked about 4 basic things today. Using jazz chants to reinforce and practice vocabulary. Remember that rhythm is a powerful memory tool. So we have that jazz chant, ruler, eraser, chair. Ruler, eraser, chair. And again, you can do it with any vocabulary that you're working on. Second, you can use jazz chants to practice idiomatic expression and chunks of useful language. Remember we did how do you spell dog, how do you spell cat, how do you spell elephant, how do you spell encyclopedia. So your students have that template. Do you think it's going to rain? Do you think it's going to snow? Do you think it's going to storm? I hope so, I hope not. Very common expressions that we use every day. You can use chants to practice grammar patterns and features. We talked about using a jazz chant to contrast 2 different grammatical structures, if it and when it, using the future versus the simple present, do you versus does he. We can use jazz chants to help your students learn and practice producing the natural rhythms of spoken English. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? If your students are shy and a bit timid about speaking English, use jazz chants to help them build their confidence. It's a wonderful, wonderful confidence builder. So thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I hope you'll have fun with these chants. I look forward to your questions and your comments on the Ning. Please come to the Ning and tell us about ways that you've used jazz chants and ways you plan to use them. Let us know if it works. And share resources that you use to work with your students. If you go to the Ning now, you'll see there are several resources, including one, it actually says reading. If you look under reading, I think all 3 of them are actually websites, and one of them is Carolyn Graham's website, where she has a number of recordings similar to the ones we used today, and she has examples of other jazz chants that we didn't use today. So, does anyone have any questions? Someone suggests using TPR activities with jazz chants. Great combination, yes. And someone was saying that you'd learned about pronunciation. If you're interested in pronunciation, please check out the other webinar called Speaking Clearly that was done in May. There is a recording of it that you can listen to. Someone asks if we can have access to this material. Yes, I think there's a pre-recording that I did yesterday that you can find at the website. Someone asked about adapting it for adults. I think you'll find that whatever it is that you're working on with your students, you can just take that material and put it in the form of jazz chants. I find that oftentimes people are timid about using poetry, songs, and jazz chants with adults, that they think it's only for children. But I think if you try it, you'll find that your students will probably really enjoy it. I know mine do. And I've used it, as I said, with graduate teaching assistants. I've used it with adult professionals from the community who wanted to improve their English. One of the things that I've found in working with professional people in the community is that oftentimes the reason that their colleagues don't understand them is mainly the stress, So if you're interested in helping your students become comprehensible, jazz chants are a great way to get at that stress. Yes, Juan says adults have fun with this type of activity. Yes, that's what I have found. Syllable-timed versus stress-timed. Just to summarize again quickly, a syllable-timed language is a language like French, where the word éducation, ta 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 ta, it sounds staccato, éducation, ta 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 ta. In English, education, education. So the stress is based on, the beat is based on a stress, it's not based on every single syllable. And again, you might want to listen to the pronunciation webinar because I spent much more time talking about that. Okay. I'm sorry that some of you had a hard time hearing, and I'm glad that at least some of it was very clear. And someone asked about other websites. I think that if you go to the Ning, you'll see I did put up a couple of other websites that might be used. And yes, use them as warm-ups. Great idea. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up now. So thank you very much. And please, if you think of questions later on, join me on the Ning. I will be more than happy to answer questions. Thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.